Hello and welcome to Sonder. My name is Maggie. I am a knitter, spinner, sometimes sewist, doctor, bibliophile, and mother who is living here in the most beautiful day ever at the end of January here in Denver, Colorado. It is January 29th. And it's insane. It is like 60 degrees today. I had the immense pleasure of going and visiting one of my best friends in the whole world, Sophia. And she's one of the few people in my real life who know about this podcast and watch regularly. So hi, Soph. I got to go up and see her new house and go for a little walk around a lake today. And we were walking and chatting in t-shirts. It was incredible. It's like 60 degrees here. Winters in Denver are very variable. Some days it is like negative 20 degrees and some days it is 60 degrees and those days can be like 3 days apart. So, but right now we are going through a really, really beautiful time and I am so happy to have you here. I am going to be talking about a lot today. I have a lot of knitting to talk about since I last saw you with one of my dear friends, Catherine, but I wanted to begin by talking about the name of the podcast because through the years I have gotten some questions about why my podcast, or I guess like blog, I don't know what this is, but why my knitting podcast is named Sonder. And I think that became even more confusing when the yarn company Sonder came out. I had this moment when that happened where I was like, should I change the name of the podcast that I've been having? But it is just my favorite word in the English language. And I decided, no, I will keep it. And so for those of you who don't know, this is the definition of Sonder, just reading off my computer. Sonder, a noun. The realization that each random passerby is living a life as vivid and complex as your own, populated with their own ambitions, friends, routines, worries, and inherited craziness. An epic story that continues invisibly around you like an anthill sprawling deep underground with elaborate passageways to thousands of other lives that you'll never know existed, in which you might appear only once as an extra sipping coffee in the background, as a blur of traffic passing on the highway, as a lighted window at dusk. I just love Sonder. I love the word. I love the thought that all of us are living these lives that are so complex and we're so enmeshed in our own day-to-day lives, in our own stories, that I feel like this is a moment where we can come together on the internet and have a glimpse into someone else's life and their making and their process. And then in doing that, realize that we're all connected. And then I get to connect with other people and other makers in this crazy world. And I just love that. I love that idea. So that is where the name came from. And I don't know, maybe tell me below if you think I should change it. I can totally change it to my name, but I love that thought of connection that brings us together. Because I think that's why we all come on here and share, is for that connection. So thank you all for being here. And that's also part of why I share my life on here. So I have had a really great month. It's looking more and more like this actual video podcast is going to be about once a month where I come on and I share my makes, but I'm going to try my very best this year to sprinkle in some other things to connect with you all more frequently. I think that will become much easier once I'm finished with residency, which will be in June, which I'm so excited about. The very end of June. So it's essentially like July 1, I'll be totally done. I'm so excited about that. But, you know, with that, I also feel like I have, you know, more free time as residency is coming to an end and I'm beginning to transition to my like adult doctor job. And that's so exciting. It's an exciting time. And I feel like I want to reflect on how the last 8 years have been, but also want to build more connections and see people more. I was talking with Sophia on our walk today about that, about how, you know, I feel like my whole life for the last 8 years has been about medicine and has been about work. You know, when I was in medical school, it was always about studying and about work. And then when I went into residency, I have been working 80 hours a week, and it's been about that, about just surviving that. And I think I use knitting a lot because it helps with my anxiety. It helps with my mental health. And I'm so excited to be able to focus more on that and have more time. So anyway, I am so happy to have y'all here. I have had a really, really great last month, and particularly the last couple of weeks. I right now am on an endocrinology elective. I'm actually just finishing that, and I'll be transitioning into a kind of heinous month where I'm essentially working swing shift, which is like the noon to like midnight-ish time, and then night shifts, which are like 5 p.m. to like 6 a.m. the next day. So I'll be doing that for the next month. So bear with me as I survive that month. But I have had so much fun hanging out with friends, connecting with people, and enjoying Denver. It has been a really, really mild year. I spent a couple of weeks over the holidays up in Steamboat, where I grew up in a little ski town in Northwest Colorado. And let me tell y'all, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, it snowed like 15 inches each day, and it was incredible skiing. I'll try to put some stuff on here, but that was amazing. And then we've gone to a lot of Avalanche games, which for those of you who don't know, I am a huge fan of hockey and of the Colorado Avalanche. And the last game we went to was actually this Friday, and it was Pride night. And so I brought a bunch of Pride flags, and it was very fun because they went away within like 2 minutes of me starting to hand them out in between the first and second period, which just made me feel so good. It's so fun to like have the time together, all celebrating and enjoying this game we love. So we won, which was also a added benefit, beat the LA Kings like 5-1. It was great. And yeah, now I am just hanging out. I'm having a good kind of calm before the storm. I start my evening shifts here in just another day. And so wanted to come on here and connect with you all. I have a lot of knitting and a lot of reading and a little bit of spinning to talk about. So let's get started. I am wearing a ranunculus. This is marled with one strand of mohair and one strand of like cotton. And I really love it. I'm really enjoying it today because like I said, it's like 60 degrees. And I have a couple of finished objects for you today. One you might recognize is this beret that I'm wearing on my head. This is the Smora beret by Gudrun Johnston, and it is in her book Shetland Trader Volume 3, I believe. And this is from the Pom Pom Press, and is part of a make-along that I am running with a couple of other makers and designers. And all it is just showing Pom Pom Press some of our love. And all you have to do to enter is to post in the info box down below. I put in a Google sheet that you can fill out with all of the information you need to enter this giveaway. I decided to do that because honestly, I'm not very good at using Instagram, and I would really still like for people, if they're so inclined, to use the hashtag #PomPomLoveMal on Instagram so that I can see the things you're making. But really all it is a mal about showing Pom Pom our love, making something from Pom Pom, any pattern. You don't have to finish it, you just have to start it. That's all you have to do, and you'll be entered to win. I have, the plan is to give away some project bags that I will sew up. I have all of the fabric, so I'll be making some delicious quilted project bags, which you can look back at like past projects. I've made a bunch of them on here before, but I'll be making a few project bags and probably sending some of my salve that I made. And then we have been donated some patterns as well. So it is really fun. It's been a great community, and I am making a couple of different things for the Pom Pom Love Mal. The first being the Smora beret. So I knit this out of Shetland Jamieson Smith Shetland, in a variety of colors that I just had in my stash. Yeah, I don't think any of these colors are like the called for colors. I just honestly, I'm one of those people who, as I'm walking around in yarn stores, if they have Shetland wool, I'll just kind of like grab a couple that call my name, and I put those together to make this beautiful beret. I am really, really proud of this. I really love how it came together. I think my favorite band is this one, and that is this color, which is this kind of like marl, it's not marled, but it just has this crazy depth of color, but it's kind of like a peachy beige from afar, and then you get up close and it has like greens and oranges, and then this color, which is this really beautiful kind of caramel brown, those together. And then this was like my pop of color, this kind of sage green. So I really love it. I finished it and I was like, this is one of the coolest things I've ever made, but also for some reason I'm like self-conscious about wearing it because I feel like it's like too cool for me. So anyway, I felt that way for a while, and then I just started wearing it all the time and getting tons and tons of compliments about it. And then I was like, why am I being so weird, you know? But I followed the pattern exactly. The only thing that I changed is I think I did change kind of where the colors went within each motif, but I generally went from like darker to lighter back to darker, but did use different colors than what the pattern calls for. And it was so fun. I always think the beginning of round, because you're knitting in a circle, you are always knitting on a spiral, and I think the beginning of round always looks a little wonky, and I don't think that I can fix that, and so I just put it in the bottom, right like at the nape of my neck, so that hopefully nobody sees it. But I really love this. The fact that it is a beret, one added benefit is I feel like whenever I'm wearing a hat, it like smushes down my hair. And with someone who has bangs, then I take my hat off and my bangs just look insane. And I will say that the beret does not do that, and I am delighted. So I have kind of this like orange jacket, and I feel like I wear this with my orange jacket and I just feel very chic and very like retro 70s. But anyway, this is how I've been wearing it. I think there are like a bunch of other ways to wear these types of berets, but I haven't really tried any other ways other than this. This is like the way that I like to wear it the most. That is one of my finished objects, and my next finished object is the Thickness socks by Summer Lee Designs, and these are a gift a holiday gift for a friend. And I have not seen him since the holidays, which is why I still have them with me. Otherwise, they would be on his feet. So I did not just like hold on to them for the podcast, but I'm glad you get to see them. They are a scrappy set of DK socks in which I marled my scraps together to make these lovely purpley gray socks. This particular man's favorite colors are black and purple. And so I thought I have some black and purple yarn in my stash, and this is what was birthed out of it. I really love them. I think he will really love them. I really need to see him so that I can give them to him. I'm gonna see his wife at the hospital tomorrow, and so I may just give them to her and make her send me a picture. But those are my 2 finished objects apart from my finished spinning. So I got a little bit out of the practice of spinning. I love spinning and I love knitting with my hand spun yarn. This year, as you all may know, I knit a really beautiful sweater out of my hand spun, which I am looking at right now. I actually wore it this morning, but it's too warm right now. But I really do love spinning, but I do find that being a mother, spinning is something that is a little bit harder for me to like pick up and put down. I can certainly like spin and stop spinning, really at any moment, which is really nice, but it's kind of like I have to like put my spinning wheel out and like get my stuff and like oil everything. And it's just not as straightforward as just like going and spinning. And so I find that I use my time knitting more than I do spinning, but I really love spinning and I have a lot of really beautiful fiber that I want to use up. And so I'm going to make a conscious effort to do a little bit more spinning this year. This is a pink skein of about DK weight yarn that I spun out of Neighborhood Fiber Company. I don't remember the like colorway, but it was a pink yarn that had wool and silk in it. And this is the first time I've ever spun with silk that I can remember. And it was very fun, but also kind of challenging. I just did a combo spin of this. I just pulled it apart willy-nilly, did 3 different plies and then plied them all together. And I really love it. It's really bouncy. And given that it's a 3-ply, and I already have a really cute hand spun hat that is almost the same exact color, I actually think I am going to turn this into some hand spun socks. So that is my plan. I honestly probably will use the thickness sock pattern, but will most likely use some ribbing just because, or maybe not, I don't know. But don't you think this would be amazing as a pair of thickness socks? I will have to look through because the very end of the skein, as I was plying, one of the 3 plies ended before the other 2, and the other 2 had like quite a bit left on them. And so I just was like, I'm just gonna ply these together. And so somewhere, which this like is something I should have thought about before, somewhere in here, it's a 3-ply that then changes to a 2-ply. And so, you know, I'm gonna have to kind of think about that. Like, I think this is a 2-ply. And so I'm just gonna have to look. Honestly, this might be the spot where it changes. Anyway, I think these are gonna be a pair of socks. Wouldn't this just be such a nice pair of DK weight socks? Ugh, yes, please. Okay. Those are all of my finished objects. And so let's move on to some whips. I have a lot of whips to talk to you about. And since we were talking about the Pom Pom Love Mal, I will talk about my sweater that I'm knitting for that. This is the Soiree by Emily Foden. And I am knitting this out of the Purl Soho Tussock silk in this beautiful blue color, as well as some naturally dyed wool that is from the mill that is right next to my family's home. So this is Woolen, which I don't think you can get this anymore, but I think High Country Wool is the same base. And it is 80% fine merino, 10% raw material, and 10% blue BFL. And it's this really beautiful blue color. So I am holding those together to knit the Soiree. And I have come to a point that I'm not totally sure what to do, which is why I've paused a little bit on this sweater. So this sweater is a really wonderful bottom-up construction. It has a folded hem on the bottom, and then the collar, which I have knit this a little bit out of order, which I'll explain, but that is also folded. And I am just knitting away on one of the sleeves, and I am really enjoying it. At first, I thought that I was going to be playing yarn chicken, and so I was reticent to knit this sleeve very different from what the pattern has called for. And at the same point, right now, I think it's fitting me well, but it's gonna be pretty short, like probably about where this sleeve is now. But this sweater is a really light sweater that's really cool. It's actually very comfortable to wear even, you know, in summer afternoons. This is a warm sweater. And so I'm just thinking that, honestly, if I'm really listening to my intuition, it's that I think I need to change the decreases. This is a pretty intense decrease, and I think I need to space out the decreases by like one row so that the whole sleeve is longer and doesn't decrease so rapidly. I really think that's what I need to do, and I don't want to do it, but I just need to do it. I think I have enough yarn to do it, and so I think that's what I need to do. The complicating factor is that even though this is a drop shoulder construction, you actually leave the stitches for this honeycomb pattern in the middle on the needle. And so it is going to become a little tricky to rip this out to here and not like totally mess up the underarm. I think I can do it, but it's going to take like some real thought about how to do it. But I think that's what I have to do. I just think that I will like this better if the sleeves fit differently. And it's such a beautiful sweater that I think I just have to do it. It's going to be slightly longer than the sweater I'm wearing right now, but I love it. It's such a really, really lovely piece. So the way that this sweater is written is that you are supposed to knit the body and then the sleeves, and then the last thing you're supposed to do is pick up the neckline. For me, and I would strongly urge you all to do this as well, I would always knit the neckline first in that scenario. Like knit the body, knit the neckline, and then knit the sleeves. I do that for two reasons. One is that I usually, because I'm very tall, I'm 5'10", I like my sleeves to be as long as possible, usually. And usually what I need for sleeves is a lot longer than the average female. And so that is part of it. And the other thing is that you really will not know how long your sleeves need to be, because if you haven't knit the collar, you don't know how the sweater is gonna fit. And so really, to get the sleeves the exact length you want them, you need to knit the collar first. So anyway, thus concludes my TED Talk on why you need to knit the collar before your sleeves in top-down sweaters, or any sweaters for that matter. But I don't understand why they write it the other way. So, you know what I think I'm gonna do is I think I'm going to leave these on the needles, and I think I'm going to pick up and knit this sleeve down and keep track of what I'm doing before I rip out this one. And that way I'll be able to cross-reference with this sleeve and decide what I actually want to change, but I'll also then be able to give a little bit of time before having to rip this out and really think about it. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to knit this sleeve and then use that as a cross-reference for this one. We're doing it. You heard it here first. Isn't it so nice? I'm obsessed. It's just this really beautiful sweater that has just a tiny bit that you have to think about on the sides. But it's just enough that like your brain is thinking, but it's honestly very, very easy. The only changes that I made to this really so far, apart from me apparently drastically changing the sleeves, is that I did do a 3-needle bind off on the top. You can see my 3-needle bind off there, where the pattern called for a Kitchener stitch. I did this because I feel like this will just give a little bit more structure to the shoulder, and that's something that was really important to me. So, the Soiree sweater by Emily Foden. Please join the Pom Pom Love Mal and enter to win some delicious prizes below. If you have any interest on donating some patterns or yarn or whatever, please reach out to me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is maggiekuus, and it's below as well. And yeah, I would love to have more prizes, though I will be giving away 3 project bags and some salve, and we already have some patterns as well. So that is what I've been making for the Pom Pom Love Mal. And let's talk about my other giant whip that I have here. And this is the Radiant Star Cowl by Ella Gordon. I am almost completely done with this. I have done all of the knitting that is required for this cowl, and now just have to do the Kitchener stitch, grafting it together. And this this will actually get put inside the other, so it will form a tube kind of like this. And it's gonna be so gorgeous. This cowl is really cool. I will point out that I don't think I was gonna have enough of this dark medium blue, and so I ended up having 1 stripe. This is gonna be on the inside of the cowl, so something that you will not see. But this is gonna be hidden, which honestly part of me is like, I didn't need to do color work, but I wanted it to be extra, extra warm. But I was definitely gonna be running out of this blue color, and so I had to do a little bit of a different stripe here. Otherwise, I totally had enough. And honestly, this is gonna be on the inside of the cowl. It's something that you're not gonna see anyway. But I did make that one modification, I suppose. But this cowl is so genius. You cast on with a provisional cast on, and then you knit for quite a while doing this gorgeous color work. And then what I'll do is I'll form it into a tube, and I will graft these 2 sides together so that it ends like that. It's so good. The other thing that I thought was great about this is halfway through, you change to a slightly smaller needle. And so this side will fit on the inside because this top part is a slightly tighter gauge than the bottom part. So genius. But yeah, this is gonna be 4 layers of Shetland wool because it's color work, and it is gonna be divine. So this is all Jamieson's and Smith 2-ply jumper weight. Apart from the dark red, burgundy red, is Rauma Phenol in, I don't know, some burgundy red color. Let me turn on, I wish I could, this is like not showing you the best color representation. These are kind of like a medium blue, and then this is kind of a maroon purple. And I chose these colors to match the Avalanche. This is the team colors of the Colorado Avalanche, our hockey team, and I made this for my partner Sean because he is even bigger of an Avalanche fan than me. He was actually at the Game 7 game, not this time, but the last time we won a Stanley Cup, which is so cool. He got to see all those boys lift the Stanley Cup, which is wild. But this is for him, and I will definitely have this done by the next podcast. All I need to do is Kitchener stitch the two ends together. And the other thing I might do, which I'm not totally sure I'm gonna do this, is I might duplicate stitch over some of the stitches as well. But I had a lot of fun knitting this. It obviously went very fast. I feel bad y'all didn't even really see it as a whip because all of the knitting is done. It went by really fast, but I would say I would not choose this project as your first color work project. It's very simple and it's very straightforward in terms of the fact that it is just knitting in a tube. And so I think a cowl would be an excellent choice for a first color work project. But this particular motif is very long. So as you can see, this motif is long and wide. And that means that I had to stare at this chart as I was knitting. Like there was no memorizing of the chart. Maybe some people can. I am not that person. I love color work. I had a blast, but I will say that this required me to be like glued to the chart to keep track of everything that was going on because the motif was so long that it's not really something you can memorize easily. Beyond that, it was fantastic and I highly recommend. I have the yarn to knit myself one of these as well in some slightly different colors. But honestly, I am so drawn to the motif in this hat that I kind of want to recreate this into a cowl like this rather than the colors I have. I'm not going to do that because I already have the colors in stash and they're also beautiful. They're very similar to Ella Gordon's colors that she chose for this motif. Okay, the next whip I'm going to talk about is a pair of socks. These are socks for Sean. He is a giant man with giant man feet. These are this is really beautiful yarn that I got in Rhinebeck from Woolen's and Nosh, and it is the percolated colorway on her superwash targy fingering, which is 90% targy and 10% nylon, I believe. Yes. And it is so fun. Initially, I had thought that I would want to have the socks match as closely as I could possibly get, but then I thought, I don't care about that. I don't want to waste yarn. And so I just cast on where I had bound off the next one. So you can see this one is starting like down here. Do I care? No, I don't. I think they're gonna be great. They're also gonna go on my husband's feet. So, I really love these. They're so fun. I'm also looking because the gauge in this last line is a little off, and that is because my darling, darling niece, Scotia, she really loves knitting. She's like very intrigued by knitting. And so whenever I go over to her house, she always wants to knit on something, and she's actually like very proficient at knitting, even though she's only 6 years old. It's wild. She's a prodigy. But her gauge when she knits is different than my gauge. And this is hard knitting, like a tiny little fiddly thing on tiny needles. So I am like really impressed by her, but she knit for a couple of rows on these socks and we just have different gauge. And so I might need to rip those out and reknit it, but I probably won't because it's adorable. And I feel like Sean will enjoy that his niece has a couple of, you know, wonky rows in there. So these are really great. These are just a vanilla sock that I am knitting. I think for Sean's leg, I use 76 stitches for fingering weight yarn. He is humongous. And yeah, I am really enjoying this yarn. It's really beautiful. It feels a little bit more toothy than other superwash yarns, and I think it's a bit thicker than other superwash yarns as well, which I'm really enjoying. But I think what I've learned is that the last 3 socks I have knit have been for men with giant feet, and I love them and I love gift giving. I'm also like, it feels like it takes forever, and so I think after this sock, this is going to be the last sock that Sean gets for several months, because it's making me not want to knit on socks because it feels like a daunting project because they're so huge. Ugh. All right. I have just a couple more things to talk to you about, and that is my latest whip, which I'm so excited about. So, as you all may know, I went to Rhinebeck this year, and while I was there, I bought 2 different sweater quantities of yarn. One of them is this beautiful wool that now I'm forgetting. I think it's Targhee, and it's from Solitude Farms, and it is just the most beautiful, naturally colored, worsted weight, maybe DK weight, but more worsted weight, DK. I think it's more DK. Anyway, I don't know what this is, but it's beautiful. And I have been wanting to make this into the Jenny Jacket V-neck by PetiteKnit. I feel like I, at one point, was knitting everything from Pom Pom Press, and I'm about to enter my PetiteKnit era, which I am so here for. She is a genius. I think her sweaters are things that are timeless. Like, they will be in fashion forever, and I love them. And so get prepared for a lot of PetiteKnit, which I know is not that exciting, but I just love her stuff. So anyway, there's the Jenny Jacket V-neck, which I am planning to knit out of this beautiful farm yarn that I got from Rhinebeck. And I love this, and I am going to probably cast this one on next, but I just needed a little bit of color. I think this is something that I will love to knit on. I will love to have the peace and calm of this creamy yarn in the spring and summer. And so I went for the Agnete cardigan by PetiteKnit, which I am knitting out of the beautiful, beautiful wool that is the Lamb and Kid. I have 2 bases from them. One is this like really beautiful fingering weight non-superwash yarn that is 20% cashmere and 80% merino. And then I'm holding it together with Soiree, whatever their Soiree is. I don't know what it actually is called on their website, but I got this during Rhinebeck weekend, and I have them both in the Heirloom colorway, which to me reads very much as red, like a tomato red, which is why I think it's called Heirloom. But my husband keeps being like, ah, what a cool orange sweater. So physics, we just love it. We love how light bounces off the rods in the back of our eye and gets perceived by our brains, and our brains send different messages. How cool is that? But this is divine. I think everybody's been talking about the Lamb and Kid, and I was kind of like, whatever. But now that I have some, it's delightful. This is not something that I'm going to be purchasing frequently because this sweater, I honestly don't even want to know how much it's going to cost, but it's a little obscene. I think it's totally worth it, and I think their yarn is like an artisanal masterpiece, but it is priced accordingly, and it's just not something my budget can allow. Honestly, this year I have so much beautiful yarn that I'm going on like a loose snow buy. I'm allowing myself to buy like little bits here and there, but I have so much beautiful yarn that I'm like, I want to knit with what I have. And so I'm knitting this. Oh my gosh, the depth of color. I also wish you could like smoosh it. It's so gorgeous. So I decided to knit the Agnete cardigan. This is an all over drop shoulder brioche sweater that I am knitting out of these 2 yarns held together. The Agnete cardigan does call for 2 yarns held together, but these yarns are both a little bit thicker, I think, than what that was called for. So it called for like a light fingering and a mohair, and I'm holding together like a solid fingering bordering on sport, but it's still a fingering, and a Soiree, which is definitely thicker than a mohair. And so I could not get gauge, like there's no way. I started off down here on the recommended needle size, and my gauge was already bigger and it was uncomfortable to knit with. And so I was like, this is not happening. And so I cast on, or I kept knitting my swatch with a 1 size larger, and honestly the gauge was about the same, maybe slightly bigger than the previous gauge, but it was much more comfortable to knit on. And so I thought, that's it, that's what I'm doing. And then I just calculated using a little bit of algebra what size I would need, and it turned out that to get the size of sweater I wanted, which is about a medium, that I needed to knit the extra small. And so I cast on the extra small, and it might be a little wonky because, you know, row gauge, stitch gauge, all a little different, but you know what? We'll figure that out as we go. Y'all, I'm obsessed with this sweater. I cast on, it is the wildest thing. So this sweater has an applied, what is that called? An applied button band that is double knit. And you start off by doing like a Judy's Magic cast on, putting half of them on a different string, then like arranging them to do double knitting. It is chaotic, but it is gorgeous. And I've already finished the back piece. So this is it. This is where you cast on. You cast on here, put some of them here, then you knit down this double knitting, then you pick up to knit the back. I mean, y'all, I think it's gonna work. I think it's gonna work. We'll see. I feel like it's always like impossible to tell, but I did calculate it. And based on my calculations, this will be divine. Isn't it gorgeous? I wish y'all could feel this. Like, it is insane. One thing I will say that was intimidating me about this sweater is that it is knit on like tiny needles. So even this, I went up a needle size and I'm knitting it on US 3s. But because of that, I was really worried, but honestly, you have to knit it that small because the brioche stitch grows so much because you have all of those yarn overs, but it doesn't grow at the rate that I would have thought. Like, I would have thought that it took a lot longer for it to grow, when in reality, it's growing much like I would expect for like a DK weight sweater. So I wouldn't get totally turned off by the size of the needles, because I think that's really just that with the yarn overs, the brioche stitch really widens out. And the great thing about that is you don't have to use a different needle size for the double knitting, because it's already going to be way smaller, because this fabric is just so different than the brioche, where normally you would have to have like double-sided needles to do the button band when it's applied, because usually you'll have to use like way different size needles for that than this. So I thought that was also genius. Look at this beautiful shoulder detail. I'm just blown away. So I just finished the back piece. Now what's gonna happen is I am going to pick up and knit like the shoulders down or something. I don't know. I haven't looked that far. That is a problem for tonight. But I can't stop. Partially I can't stop because this fabric is gorgeous. Like, it's delightful. The fabric is gorgeous. It's really fun and methodical. The other thing that I didn't think about, which this will not be the case for when I do the sleeves in the round, but for knitting brioche, one color brioche flat, it is just all brioche knitting, like knitting, no purls whatsoever. Just brioche knit, brioche knit, brioche knit. Other side, same thing. Brioche knit, brioche knit, brioche knit, all the way back. It is gorgeous. So I'm obsessed. It is so squishy. I'm gonna wear this constantly. I feel like it's my color. Don't you agree? So anyway, I say that I'm gonna knit the second sleeve to my soiree, but my heart is going a different direction. But I do really want to wear that sweater, and it is so close to being wearable. Okay. I have a few more minutes to talk about my reading. And y'all, I don't know if I'm the only one on the planet who wants to talk about these books constantly, but wow, wow. Robin Hobb, you dog. Since we last spoke, I think I was like part of the way through the first book of the Live Ship Traders trilogy, and I have since finished all three, and it was incredible. These are some of the best books I have ever read. It is definitely the best fantasy I've ever read. It is incredible. So let us discuss, sorry, this is the Live Ship Traders trilogy by Robin Hobb, the one and only. She is incredible. I'm obsessed with her. I'm smitten. Like, they're so good. My God. So, the Live Ship Traders trilogy follows a multi-point of view story, meaning that there are several different narrators, which is amazing because you get to see the inner workings of lots of different people's lives and their different perspectives on what is going on. The only reason I'm harping on this is that this is the second trilogy in the realm of the Elderlings. What is the realm of the Elderlings, you may ask? Well, this is a 16-book series that follows largely several different catalysts who are changing the fate of the world. I'm trying not to talk about it too much because I don't want to spoil it for you, but the first trilogies is the Farseer trilogy, and they follow Fitz Chivalry Farseer, who is the bastard son of one of the future kings of this land, the Six Duchies, and it is about him from when he's very, very young, going to court and learning how to be an assassin for the royal family. The thing, though, is that Fitz is not very good at being an assassin, and it's such a beautiful adventure, and those three novels follow Fitz Chivalry. His inner workings, he is a child, then he is a teenager, then he is a young adult, and you are just following his point of view the whole time. And sometimes teenage boys are stupid and make bad choices. And sometimes Fitz Chivalry Farseer also makes stupid choices. And so sometimes it can be frustrating to read the whole story from his perspective, even though I love Fitz. But the second, and now I'm so excited to go back because there were some Easter eggs. There are some dots that are being connected. There's some characters that were in the first one that are in this. I can't give too much away that connects the two because I don't want to completely destroy the Farseer trilogy for you because you have to read this. It's so good. But this one follows mainly, I'll say like 4 or 5 points of view that all kind of follow these group of people who have what are known as live ships. Live ships are ships that are made out of this very particular, very special type of wood called wizard wood. And when 3 generations of people die on the planks of the wizard wood deck of like the family that owns that ship, the ship comes to life. And in that ship coming to life, it comes to life with all of the memories of the people who have died on its planks. And the ships have their own personalities, their own thoughts and desires. It's beautifully written. Like only Robin Hobb can make me fall in love with an inanimate object because it's not inanimate anymore. It's so good. It's so good. But it's also tragic and beautiful. It is wild. So it follows these people as they are living their lives within this world. And I don't want to give too much away, but I will start off by saying the very beginning of it follows one man who is a pirate captain, Captain Knit, and he is wanting to get a live ship so that he can complete his dream of being the king of the Pirate Isles. And in doing so, he's a very complex character who does a lot of wonderful things, but for a very heinous reason. And he is so self-absorbed, but also is like making the world a better place. It's wild. His story is complex. There are twists and turns. It also follows Althea, who is this kind of, at the beginning, she's kind of a spoiled young woman who was the daughter to Ephraim Vestrit, the owner of the live ship. And she has always thought that the live ship Vivacia will go to her when her father dies. Her father dies and things do not go as planned. It also follows Malta Vestrit, which is her niece, and she is the most spoiled brat little, oh my gosh, when you first meet her, you're like, you are an idiot and I want you to get bitch slapped. And boy, does she have a character arc. It follows people in the Rain Wilds, which is like this like civilization in the rainforest where they live in the trees and they like, it's wild. They bring like all these treasures down the river. It follows, lastly, really the last big character is Malta's older brother, Wintro, and it follows him. He starts off the story as a monk worshiping Sa, and boy, does his character arc change as well. So these are incredible character-driven fantasy novels that it is just like the way fantasy should be written. Also, like for those of you out there who are like, I don't like fantasy because it's not literary and I don't get anything from it, I will say that these are beautifully written and like they are so feminist, which like part of that is that they're written by a woman. Robin Hobb is a woman. And you can just tell, like she writes the most strong, most badass ladies in the world. I love it. It's so good. Like they are also complex characters. They're not always good. They're not always bad. They're making bad decisions, but also for good reasons. Like it is so complex. Her characters are just these like badass women. There are also badass men in it, and they're badass, genderqueer, gender non-conforming, gender fluid people as well. It's got it all. It's so good. There are a lot of trigger warnings though. If you have not read fantasy, generally fantasy does not stray away from trigger warnings, and there are lots of trigger warnings. There are like graphic descriptions of slavery and sexual assault, and those are the biggest ones that come to mind, but like there is a lot just all over. Like fantasy is rough with that type of thing. But boy, I can't get over it. They're so good. Oh boy. So right now I am reading the last Evie Dunmore book. What is it called? Oh, I'd have to look. I'll put it up here. I'm reading the Evie Dunmore's last book, and I honestly was like halfway through that when I stopped and started reading this trilogy, and then I literally couldn't put it down and read all like, I don't know, 2,100 pages within the course of like 3 weeks. I couldn't stop. So I've gone back to that, which is just really light reading. And then honestly, I'm going to jump right into the Tawny Man trilogy, which is the next trilogy in the realm of the Elderlings. So I apologize for me just talking on and on about Robin Hobb, but be prepared to hear more about her and her amazing world, because I am not done. I am here for it, and you should read it too. All right, with that, I need to go pick up Miss Edie Mae. It was wonderful connecting with all of you, and I hope that you are enjoying the last few weeks of winter. Stay warm, and I'll see you soon. Bye.